Dad perfect events. 2 months after my daughter's wedding, the photographer called me and whispered, "Sir, I noticed something terrible in the photos. Come immediately alone and don't say anything to your daughter." The phone rang just as I sat down with my coffee. Tuesday morning, quiet house. Financial reports spread across my desk at my home office in Paradise Valley, the kind of peaceful moment it earned after building Pierce Auto Repair from nothing. 3 shops across Phoenix now, one on McDowell Road, another on Camelback, and the flagship location on 32nd Street. Good business, good life. I'm Howard Pierce, 58 years old, and I almost didn't answer that unknown number. "Mr. Pierce," the woman's voice trembled. "This is Janet Walsh. I photographed Diana's wedding 2 months ago. I need to see you immediately. Alone." "Please don't tell your daughter." My hand tightened on the phone. Through my office window, I could see the main garage bay of my newest location across the street. 3 hydraulic lifts, all busy. Tuesday morning rush. What's wrong? I can't explain over the phone, but I found something in the photographs, something very serious. The air in my office changed, became thinner somehow. The distant sound of air guns and hydraulic lifts from my shop seemed to fade. "What kind of something tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., my studio downtown, please, Mr. Pierce, come alone." Before I could respond, Linda's voice exploded from the kitchen. "Dad, I told you 3 times already. I need that car. My Honda is embarrassing." "You promised you'd ask him today." Carl's laugh rumbled from the living room, some TV show blaring beneath it. Through the thin walls of my house, their presence felt overwhelming. "I'll be there," I said into the phone, barely hearing my own voice. Janet exhaled. "Thank you." "I'm so sorry, Mr. Pierce. I really am." She hung up. I sat motionless at my desk, the phone still pressed to my ear, staring at the framed photograph on my wall. Diana in her wedding dress, radiant against the botanical garden backdrop. Roger beside her in his tuxedo, perfect smile. 2 months ago. 65,000 ID spent on that day at the Desert Botanical Garden and Phoenician Resort. Worth every penny to see my eldest daughter happy. Something very serious in the photographs. "Dad." Linda appeared in my doorway, phone in one hand, car keys in the other. At 28, she still had that teenage petulance when she didn't get what she wanted. "Did you hear me? I need money for a new car." The Honda is 7 years old and it's humiliating. I looked at my youngest daughter, living in my guest house for 4 years now, ever since her divorce. Temporarily, Shed said, when she moved into the converted casita behind the pool. Carl had followed 6 months later. No rent, no end date, no contributions to utilities or groceries. "We'll talk about it later, sweetheart. Later, I need to go to the dealership this week. My friend got a new Lexus and I can't keep showing up in that piece of junk." I turned back to my computer screen. Inventory reports from all 3 locations. The numbers blurred. "Dad, are you listening later, Linda?" She huffed and disappeared. Her footsteps stomped across the tile floors through my living room, out the sliding door to the guest house. A door slammed hard enough to rattle my office windows. I picked up my coffee. Cold now, through my office window, the desert stretched toward South Mountain, interrupted only by the sprawl of Phoenix suburbs. Everything looked normal, felt wrong. The day crawled forward. I tried focusing on parts orders, payroll schedules for my mechanics, quarterly tax projections. My mind kept circling back to Janet's trembling voice. The wedding had been perfect, hadn't it? Diana had glowed walking down that garden aisle. Roger had been attentive, charming with my business partners. The ceremony under those towering saguaro cacti, reception on the resort terrace overlooking the city lights, everything elegant, tasteful, expensive. What could possibly be wrong with the photographs? Around noon, Carl wandered into my office without knocking. Never knocked, just walked through my house like he owned the place. At 31, he carried himself with the casual confidence of someone who'd never worried about rent or utilities. "Hey, Pops, Linda says you're being weird about the car thing. I didn't look up from my computer." I said. "We'd discuss it later." "Yeah, but she's pretty set on it." "Maybe just give her the money, keep the peace." He leaned against my doorframe, arms crossed, blocking my view of the hallway. You know how she gets when she's stressed. I knew exactly how Linda got. 4 years of tantrums, demands, emotional manipulation. Carl enabled every bit of it. "Carl? Working." Sure. Just saying, happy wife, happy life, right?" He grinned and left, flip-flops slapping against the tile as he headed back to the guest house. Happy wife, had never married Linda. 4 years together, living in my property, and he couldn't be bothered to make it official. But he had opinions about how I should spend my money. I stood and walked to my window below. My pool sparkled unused. The guest house sat at the far edge of my half-acre lot, complete with its own entrance, full kitchen, 2 bedrooms. ID had it built thinking visiting grandchildren might use it someday. Maybe Diana's kids when she started a family. No grandchildren. Just Linda and Carl treating my property like a free resort. The afternoon bled into evening. I heated leftover Mexican food from my favorite place on Central Avenue, ate alone at my kitchen counter while Carl occupied my living room, and Linda video called someone from the guest house, her laugh piercing through the desert evening air. At 7:30, my doorbell rang. Diana stood on my front step, perfect as always. Tailored blazer, designer jeans, that smile shed inherited from her mother. My eldest, my successful one. Top real estate agent in Scottsdale, beautiful condo in Old Town, married to Roger Brooks, insurance broker with a corner office downtown. "Hi, Daddy." She kissed my cheek and walked past me into the house. I was in the neighborhood, thought I'd stop by. Scottsdale to Paradise Valley wasn't exactly the neighborhood, especially not at rush hour on the 101, but I didn't mention it. She settled onto my leather couch, crossed her legs, looked around the living room like she was appraising it, professional habit maybe, or something else. "How are you?" "You look tired." Long day parts supplier issues at the Camelback location. She picked up a framed photo from my side table. Her and Linda as children, maybe 8 and 4, at the Grand Canyon, studied it with that real estate agent focus, set it back down slightly off-center. Roger and I have been house hunting. We found the most incredible place in North Scottsdale, 4 bedrooms, infinity pool, mountain views, absolutely perfect. I sat in the chair across from her, waited. In my experience, Diana never visited without an agenda. The thing is, we need to move fast. Market's competitive right now, especially in that price range. We need help with the down payment. She smiled warmly, the same smile that had gotten her out of trouble as a teenager, $40,000. You understand, right? After everything you spent on the wedding, this is just completing the picture, helping us start our life together properly. 40,000 said, like she was asking to borrow my truck for the weekend. Something in my chest tightened. That hollow feeling from Janet's phone call expanded like a slow leak in a tire. $40,000, I repeated. Is that a problem? A slight edge entered her voice. So slight most people wouldn't catch it. But I'd heard that tone since she was 5 years old. Dad, we need to move fast. The market is competitive. I thought you'd want to help us start our life together properly. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The designer clothes that cost more than my mechanics made in a week. The manicured nails, the practiced warmth that didn't quite reach her eyes. Let me think about it, sweetheart. Her smile faltered just for a second. Think about it? Dad, this is important. Roger and I have been planning. I need to review some things first. She stood abruptly, smoothing her blazer with sharp movements. Fine. But don't take too long. We can't lose this house. She grabbed her Prada purse, kissed my cheek again, colder this time. Love you, Daddy. Call me soon. I watched her white Mercedes GLC pull away from my driveway, standing in my doorway under the porch light. 40,000 delivered like I'd already agreed. Like my money was her money, like my 40 years of building 3 successful auto repair shops existed solely to fund her lifestyle. Carl's laughter echoed from the living room, sports highlights on my 65-inch TV, his beer bottle sweating onto my marble coffee table without a coaster. I walked back inside, but something had shifted. The house felt different, or maybe I was seeing it clearly for the first time. My phone sat on the hall table where Eid left it, Janate's number still in the call log. Tomorrow morning, her studio downtown on Roosevelt Row. Whatever Shed found in those wedding photographs, I had a feeling it would explain this hollow sensation spreading through my chest like radiator coolant leaking into an engine block. I picked up the phone and looked at Diana's last text from an hour ago. Thanks for understanding about the house, Dad. Love you. I hadn't agreed to anything, but Shed assumed. They all assumed. I left the house before Linda woke up. Didn't want questions. Didn't want Carl asking where I was going with that look he got like everything I did required his approval in my own home. The drive to downtown Phoenix took 25 minutes in my F-150, navigating morning traffic on the 51 South, then surface streets into the Arts District. Janet's studio was in a converted warehouse near Roosevelt and 7th Street, her name on a brass plate beside a heavy metal door. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, but my mind kept replaying her voice on the phone, something very serious. I parked across the street next to a coffee shop that wasn't there when ID started my first repair shop 30 years ago. The neighborhood had changed. Gentrified. Young professionals with expensive coffee and art galleries where auto parts stores used to be. Whatever was inside that studio, whatever Janet had found, it would explain Deanna's casual request for $40,000. It would explain the hollow feeling I'd carried since her visit last night. I knew it would. I just didn't want to know how. The studio smelled like coffee and printer ink. Professional photographs lined the exposed brick walls. weddings, families, corporate headshots. Janae met me at the door, younger than I'd remembered from the wedding day. Mid-40s, maybe, wearing jeans and a simple blouse. Nervous hands, apologetic eyes. Mr. Pierce, thank you for coming. She locked the door behind me with a deadbolt. I have everything set up in the editing room. I followed her through the gallery space to a smaller room dominated by a large monitor and computer equipment. Wedding portfolios stacked on industrial shelving. The window overlooked an alley where a homeless man pushed a shopping cart filled with aluminum cans. Can I get you coffee? Water? I'm fine. I wasn't fine. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed motor oil. Please just show me. She nodded and sat at her computer. I remained standing behind her chair, hands gripping the leather back. Mr. Pierce, I almost didn't call you. I went back and forth for weeks, but if I were in your position, I'd want to know. Please understand, I didn't go looking for this. My throat tightened. Show me. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd edited thousands of photos, the monitor filled with images from Diana's wedding. The ceremony under the desert sky. My daughter walking down that garden aisle between towering saguaros. Roger waiting at the altar in his tuxedo. Geese smiling in the Arizona heat. Everything beautiful. Everything perfect. These are the standard shots, Janet said softly. What you saw at the wedding, what everyone saw. She clicked to the next folder. 2 hours before the ceremony, I was at the Phoenician Resort early, testing exposures in different lighting, calibrating my equipment. There is a terrace on the 3rd floor overlooking the courtyard where cocktails were served. Another click, I was shooting through a window, adjusting settings for the golden hour light. The image appeared on the screen. My hands gripped the back of her chair so hard my knuckles went white. Roger, my son-in-law, in his tuxedo shirt, not yet buttoned properly, pressed against a woman with red hair, not my daughter, not Diana. Kissing her passionately, his hands tangled in her hair, her arms wrapped around his neck like she owned him. Not a friendly goodbye. Not a last conversation with an old friend, intimate. Possessive, familiar. How long before the ceremony? My voice sounded like it was coming from someone else. You're absolutely certain about the time? 2 hours before. The metadata is all here. She pulled up a technical display on a second monitor. Numbers, timestamps, GPS coordinates, camera settings. I was testing different exposures through the resort windows. I captured this by accident, but it's real and there are multiple shots. She clicked forward, different angles. Same scene, Roger and the red-haired woman locked together like teenagers. In one photo, the woman's hand was clearly visible, left hand pressed against Roger's chest. Wedding ring, gold band with a substantial diamond. The woman was married. To someone else. Do you know who she is? I leaned closer to the screen, studying her face. Janet shook her head. I don't recognize her from the guest list. She wasn't at the ceremony or reception. I'm so sorry, Mr. Pierce. She pulled up another image. This one showed Roger's face clearly as he pulled back from the kiss. No confusion in his expression, no drunken stumble, no moment of weakness, just confidence, control. A man who knew exactly what he was doing. 2 hours before marrying my daughter, I straightened slowly. My knees felt weak, like the hydraulic fluid had drained out of them. The room tilted slightly, then righted itself. Can you prove the timing beyond any doubt? Absolutely. Janae opened another window, showed me technical data I barely understood but recognized as legitimate. Digital fingerprints, file information, GPS coordinates matching the resort location, timestamps accurate to the second. This is forensic-level evidence, Mr. Pierce. It would hold up in any court. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a small flash drive. Everything is here. All the photos, all the metadata, technical documentation. I made copies. She held it out to me. I don't know what you'll do with this information, but I believe you should have it. I took the flash drive, closed my fist around it like it contained dynamite. Don't apologize, I said. You did the right thing. The drive back to Paradise Valley passed in a blur. I gripped the steering wheel of my F-150, stared at the road, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Roger Brooks, insurance broker, polished, articulate, successful. Everything I'd thought I wanted for my daughter, kissing another woman 2 hours before their wedding. A married woman, not a mistake, not cold feet, calculated, deliberate. Why marry Diana at all? The question circled my thoughts like a buzzard over roadkill. Why go through with a $65,000 wedding to a woman you were betraying hours before the ceremony? Why make those vows? Why smile in those photos? Why take that money? What was the point? My truck knew the way home without my thinking. Paradise Valley streets, past the country club, my neighborhood, my driveway. The flash drive sat in my pocket, heavy as a wrench. I pulled into my garage just after 11. The house looked the same as when Eid left 2 hours ago. Same desert landscaping, same red tile roof, same security light that needed fixing. But I wasn't the same. I opened the front door. Carl sprawled across my leather recliner, beer in hand, some game show blaring on my television. He didn't look up. "Hey, old man, grab me another beer while you're up." From the guest house, Linda's voice carried across the pool area. "Dad, is that you? I need to talk to you about money for the spa this weekend." I stood in my own entryway, flash drive in my pocket, and something inside me that had been bending for years finally snapped. My daughter's husband cheating 2 hours before the wedding, my other daughter living in my house demanding spa money, my son-in-law ordering me to bring him beer in my chair in my house. I closed the door behind me with a quiet click. They thought I was the same man who'd left this morning. They were wrong. Sleep was impossible. I sat in my office past midnight, the flash drive from Janet on the desk beside my laptop. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photographs. Roger's face. Confident, not guilty, not confused. Confident, I opened my laptop and pulled up the wedding budget spreadsheet. $65,000 ET spent. Venue at the Desert Botanical Garden. Catering from the Phoenician, photographer, flowers flown in from California, string quartet, everything Diana had wanted. But Shed insisted on one thing specifically: cash gifts. No registry, no toasters or china patterns. "Dad, we're starting fresh. We need flexibility. Cash is more practical." I'd thought she was being mature, practical. Now I wondered what I'd actually paid for. I grabbed a legal pad and started writing. Numbers, dates, details that suddenly seemed wrong. The guest list had been 200 people, mostly my business associates, my friends from the auto repair industry, people who had known Diana since childhood. Each envelope at the reception. I remembered the gift table overflowing with envelopes and small wrapped boxes. Diana had hired someone specifically to collect them, count them, catalog them, professional efficiency. $45,000 in cash and checks, Shed told me the week after the wedding, calling from her honeymoon in Cabo. "Roger and I are so blessed, Dad. Everyone was so generous." I wrote that number down, circled it. Then I remembered something else. My business partner from the Camelback shop had handed Roger a check directly at the reception. "Welcome to the family, son. Start your life right." It'd been standing there, proud of my son-in-law's charm, $15,000. Roger had pocketed that check and smiled. "Thank you, sir. We won't forget this." $60,000 total from one wedding for a couple supposedly starting out. Why marry Diana at all? I stared at that question on my legal pad. If Roger had another woman, a married woman, why go through with a $65,000 ceremony? Why smile in those photos? Why take those vows? Unless the vows didn't matter. Unless the money did. My stomach turned like I'd eaten bad transmission fluid. At 7, I showered and dressed. Business casual, khakis, polo shirt. Left the house before Linda woke up. Didn't want questions. Didn't want to see Carl sprawled on my couch like he paid rent. The bank opened at 9. I drove to the downtown Phoenix branch where I did my business banking for all 3 shops. Professional territory. Safe ground. The manager, Patricia Williams, greeted me in her office. Wed worked together for 15 years. Since Id bought my second location. "Mr. Pierce, what brings you in this morning?" I wanted to verify a check I wrote. Wedding gift for my daughter, $15,000. Want to make sure it cleared properly. Patricia pulled it up on her computer, fingers clicking across the keyboard. "Let me see. Yes, here it is. Joint account for Roger and Diana Brooks. Check cleared without issues." "Joint account," I said casually. "When did they open that?" Patricia scrolled through the account history. Looks like May 10th, 2 months before the wedding. Not years, not when they got engaged 18 months earlier. 2 months. They must have moved fast on wedding planning, I said, keeping my voice light. Young people these days. Patricia smiled. Everything happens quickly with the younger generation. I thanked her and left, walking through the marble lobby like I was walking underwater. In my truck, I sat with the engine running. May 10th. They had opened a joint account specifically to receive wedding money. Planned it, coordinated it, timed it. This wasn't romance, this was logistics. I drove home through late morning traffic, mind churning like a cement mixer. The house looked quiet when I pulled into the garage. Carl's old Camry was there, dented and unwashed as always. I entered through the garage door to the kitchen, planned to go straight to my office. Then I heard Linda's voice from the guest house, floating across the pool area. "Yeah, Dad looks suspicious lately." Her voice carried clearly in the desert air. Phone conversation. Volume too loud. The way she always talked, I don't know, different somehow. But don't worry, sis. Carl and I can stretch this another 6 months easy by then. Hell cave and buy us that condo just to get rid of us. I froze by the sliding door. Diana's voice came through Linda's phone speaker, loud enough for me to hear from 30 feet away. Perfect. I've got one more month of playing happy wife. Then I file for divorce. Half those gifts are legally mine in Arizona. Roger already agreed to 60-40 split. Easiest $45,000 I ever made. My hand found the doorframe. Steadied myself, Linda laughed like she was watching a comedy show, and Roger's little girlfriend doesn't even know about the plan. This is perfect. Dad's so busy feeling proud of your marriage, he doesn't see anything. Keep him distracted, Diana said. Make him think you need something big. That way when I ask for the house down payment, it won't seem excessive by comparison. Already on it. Asked him for a new car yesterday. He looked annoyed, but hell come around. He always does. I backed away from the sliding door. Silent, careful, each step measured until I reached my office. Closed the door, leaned against it. My hands were shaking like I'd been using a pneumatic drill all morning. 2 daughters, both lying, both using me. One planning divorce to steal wedding money. The other squatting in my house, running out the clock until I bought them off. Playing happy wife. Easiest $45,000 I ever made. ID almost let it happen. Almost written Diana that $40,000 check for her house down payment. Almost I sat down at my computer, typed property lawyer, Phoenix, Arizona. Victor Thompson's name appeared 3rd in the search results. 25 years experience. Real estate law, family trusts. Asset protection. His office had an opening that afternoon at 2 p.m. I made the appointment. Then I sat back in my chair and looked at my closed office door. Beyond it, Linda was probably still on the phone. Carl was probably still planted on my couch. Both comfortable, both confident, they had no idea what was coming. Victor Thompson's office was in a glass building on Central Avenue, 23rd floor. I arrived 10 minutes early with my folder. Wedding spreadsheet. Flash drive from Janet. My notes from the overheard conversation. 3 pages of timelines, quotes, dollar amounts, evidence. Thompson stood as I entered. 50s, gray at the temples, firm handshake. His office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sprawl of Phoenix, law books lining one wall. Mr. Pierce, please have a seat. What's happening? I placed my manila folder on his desk. Opened it methodically. 2 months ago, I paid for my daughter's wedding, $65,000. Yesterday, the photographer showed me pictures of my son-in-law with another woman 2 hours before the ceremony. This morning, I discovered my daughter planned this. The marriage was a scam to collect cash gifts and split them. Thompson's pen paused over his legal pad. When you say plan this, you have evidence both your daughter and her husband intended to divorce from the beginning. I overheard my younger daughter on the phone with her sister. Quote, 1 more month and I file for divorce. Half the gifts are legally mine. Roger already agreed to 60-40. Those were my daughter's exact words. I slid the flash drive across his desk. The affair photos are here, metadata included. Timestamps, GPS coordinates. Thompson inserted the drive into his computer, clicked through files. His expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened. Your younger daughter, Linda, she's been living in my guest house for 4 years, her boyfriend with her. No rent, no lease, constant money demands. I pulled out my handwritten notes this morning's phone call. She told Diana they'd stretch it another 6 months until I bought them a condo. Thompson made notes, circled details, underlined 4 years and no lease. Mr. Pierce in Arizona, property law is clear. If there's no written rental agreement, you have the right to begin eviction proceedings. Standard timeline is 30 days after written notice. And they can't fight this, not successfully. Without a lease, they're essentially guests Hove overstayed. The 30-day notice is a courtesy, not a negotiation. Something loosened in my chest. Thompson pulled a thick book from his shelf. Arizona Property Code. We'll also want to protect your other assets. I recommend an irrevocable trust. Transfer your house, business interests, savings into professional management. You maintain control during your lifetime. But after death, distribution follows your instructions. Much harder to challenge than a simple will. How soon? I'll draft the eviction notices by Friday. Trust creation takes 2 to 3 weeks. My fees for everything, eviction, trust, asset protection, $8,500. ID spent $65,000 on a fake wedding. Another $45,000 collected by my daughter and her accomplice husband. That's acceptable. Friday morning, the envelopes arrived, Thompson's return address, heavy paper, official seals. By evening, I was ready. Carl and Linda were in the living room. My TV, my couch, my house. Craft breweries are huge right now. Carl was saying, Phoenix market is perfect. Wed need about $30,000 to start. Your dad would see returns in a year. Linda laughed. Hell, do it. He always does. Just frame it as helping family. I stepped into the room. They looked up, smiling. I placed the envelopes on the coffee table. "What's this?" Linda picked up hers, puzzled. "Official eviction notice. You have 30 days to find other housing." The words landed like a transmission dropping out of a truck, silence spreading outward. Linda tore open her envelope. Her face drained color. Carl grabbed his. "Have you lost your mind? This is our home. This is my house. You haven't paid rent in 4 years. Time to grow up." Carl stood, stepped toward me, fists clenched. "We're family. The notice is legal. 30 days. Start packing." Linda grabbed my arm. "Dad, please, we can work this out." I removed her hand gently but firmly, walked to my office, closed the door. Behind me, chaos erupted. Linda wailing, Carl shouting. I sat at my desk and listened. Their panic was music. 10 minutes later, Linda's voice again. Phone call. He gave us eviction papers. 30 days. Diana's voice through the speaker. "We need to talk. Coming over tomorrow with Roger." They were regrouping, coordinating, about to launch their counterattack. Let them come. Saturday evening, Diana arrived with Roger. Family dinner, Shed announced. They cooked, performed normalcy, then shifted gears. "Dad, this house is a lot to manage alone. Have you thought about something smaller?" Roger picked up the thread. "Real estate market is strong. You could help set everyone up comfortably. Share the proceeds," Diana added. "Help Linda and Carl get started. Help Roger and me with our house." I set down my fork, looked at each of them. 4 faces, 4 masks, 1 agenda. At my seat, Id placed a manila folder face down. "Before we continue, there's something you should see." Diana picked it up suspiciously. "What is this? Photographs from your wedding?" Roger with a red-haired woman 2 hours before the ceremony. Roger's face drained. Diana opened the folder, her expression hardened. "I also overheard a phone conversation, quote, 1 more month and I file for divorce. Half the gifts are legally mine. Roger already agreed to 60-40 split." Your exact words, Diana. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. "I've created an irrevocable trust. My house, business, savings, everything is protected. After my death, you'll receive the minimum required by law, not a cent more." Deanna's voice rose. "You can't do this. We're your family." I stood. "Linda and Carl have 15 days to find housing. This conversation is over. Dad, you're destroying this family." I paused at the doorway. Didn't turn around. "I'm not destroying anything. I'm protecting what I built from people who saw me as a resource, not a father." 30 days later, the sheriff arrived. Deputy Glenn Adams, professional, efficient. Linda and Carl had 2 hours to pack personal belongings, no furniture, no fixtures. What followed was chaos. Linda crying, Carl cursing, but they left, drove away in their dented Camry. I stood in my doorway, my house, truly mine for the first time in 4 years. 3 months later, I sat on my terrace with morning coffee. The eviction was complete. The trust was finalized. Diana and Roger had divorced as planned, lost money to lawyers fighting over the remaining wedding gifts. My phone rang. Janet Walsh, Howard. "I've been thinking about you. How are things?" "Things are good, Janet. For the first time in years. Truly good. Would you like to get coffee sometime?" "I'd like that very much." After we hung up, I looked out over Paradise Valley. My home, my view, my peace. Alone, yes, but free. Justice wasn't revenge. It was protection. It was boundaries. It was saying no when no was the only sane answer. I'd saved myself, and that was worth everything. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are actually the ones stealing from your future, and the greatest act of self-respect is choosing your peace over their chaos. Real family doesn't exploit your generosity as weakness. They honor your sacrifices with gratitude, not entitlement. And when they don't, you have every right to protect what you built.